Good morning, Audrey.
Good morning. It's so nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. We're really excited to have you on this episode of BioBlast. For those of you that don't know Audrey, which you should, uh, Audrey is the co-founder of Center for Breakthrough Medicine, recently acquired by SK Pharmteco. And so we're really excited to connect with you today to talk all things biotech.
Yeah, excited to talk about Philadelphia, Biotech, and SK Pharmteco.
Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe we can start there. In 2022, SK Pharmteco took a majority stake in Center for Breakthrough Medicine. And so, for those less familiar, can you give us some background just on you and your company and take us through maybe that point?
Yeah, we started the company just 5 years ago, originally actually as a real estate entity. And as we were showing, the space just really became aware of the unprecedented demand for cell and gene therapy manufacturing. And given we had acquired a building with $1 billion of pharma infrastructure, it made sense to redeploy some of that lab infrastructure to help cell and gene therapy companies in the region. In 2021, we launched a CDMO named as the Center for Breakthrough Medicines. We completed our capital raise. Actually, our original raise with SK Pharmteco was at the end of 2021, and then they took majority at the end of last year. So we are really pleased to be part of the SK Pharmteco family. We now have a full portfolio of services. So in addition to cell and gene therapy, where we do plasmid, vector, cell therapy, all the testing and analytical services, we also now have, as part of our family of companies, a small molecule production. So we have sites around the globe: Korea, France, Ireland, throughout the United States, and we have now part of a 2,000 person organization.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, 2,000 person organization, global footprint. Obviously, your home base is in Philadelphia, and so we'll jump into that a little bit more. But obviously, you took on a building that had substantial infrastructure, repurposed it, realized the opportunity, and obviously saw that there's a further opportunity just from a demand perspective to create something bigger, create something different, really provide end-to-end services, multimodality support to clients. And so maybe you can, talk to us a little bit about the differences that you're seeing now, just given being present in Philadelphia and more nationally, and then thinking now that you have a global footprint.
Yeah, we're so lucky, first of all, to be based in Philadelphia. The talent, the research institutions, the hospital, world class, really, in all regards. So lucky to be based here, and a ton of cell and gene therapy companies, as well as big pharma. So you've got the big, you got the small, you got a couple financing sources. I would say most of the capital is actually imported, which is something that everyone's sort of focused on changing. But it's a great city to be in. The Philadelphia suburbs are actually thriving. That's where our site is located, which is sort of a natural fit for horizontal manufacturing. You want to have a big footprint and easy in and out in terms of transporting materials and supplies and people and parking and all that. But love the Philly suburbs. I would say at least 50% of the commerce is really out in the suburbs, which is different than some of the other regions. And we're really providing materials for the world when it comes to cell and gene therapy. So a lot of our clients are not from here. They're from Australia or Europe. We actually have a big deal getting announced this month with a large European manufacturer. So a lot of clients from all over the place that are focused on manufacturing excellence, which is what we really bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, core competencies have certainly grown with your expanded capabilities, and being in King of Prussia, co-locating with Penn, obviously access to the Philadelphia geography is super impactful. And so when you think about sort of the arc of your professional journey, your background was in finance and investment and real estate. And, obviously you've sort of hit what I would deem to be almost celebrity status, at least in our eyes. You may think differently, or your kids may think differently. Celebrity status maybe as a mother. But, what challenges have you had to overcome when you think about the highs and lows of, your professional background and journey?
Yeah, there's 90% of your time is challenges, right? And then you take that 10% to celebrate the wins, but it's never a linear path, and that's all good. I mean, the learning comes in the times of defeat and challenge, which make you stronger ultimately and better. But if I look at the arc of my career, it's not only not linear, but sometimes taking step backwards to take those future steps forward. So I started in accounting and finance, just like you said. By the way, numbers are a great background for all the kids out there. It's good to have numbers in your background, at least from an educational perspective, not necessarily work experience, which is great too. I learned more on the job, as we all know. But having that numbers background in accounting and finance was really helpful for me now. Certainly when it comes to capital raising, be able to answer all the hard questions in terms of market dynamics and future growth and pro forma, market penetration, things of that nature. And then after accounting and finance, really went into real estate and the private equity side, which again, also real estate is always part of, in particular for biomanufacturing and any kind of biotech company or pharma company, real estate always comes into play. It's at least 25% of the cost in terms of what they're dealing with and where they live. I mean, obviously Boston's more expensive and San Francisco's more expensive than other regions, but real estate is important part of the cost equation. So worked in real estate for a number of years and in private equity. And then ultimately that led me to starting the Center for Breakthrough Medicines. So it's been an interesting path. And actually now I went from focusing at CBM on more finance, joint ventures, capital raise now to sales and marketing. And I love being part of the sales and marketing and the commercial team, interacting with clients. You're just closer to the patient and understanding the incredible journey that a drug goes through in its life cycle and the people shepherding that drug through the approval process and all the patients that are so desperately waiting for these cures, in particular in cell and gene therapy, where we're working on curative therapies that are first-time cures for genetic disease and certain forms of cancer. It's so compelling and really mission driven to be able to work with these companies that are delivering these therapies. So being proximate to the patient, dealing with the clients every day, working with them, being a real partner to them. None of it, talking about linear paths in my career journey. I mean, the life cycle of a drug, nothing ever goes as planned. So you've got to be nimble and remember to be flexible and always looking at the challenges that may come to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And, biotech's a game of probabilities and, so is drug discovery. And obviously having the ability to, address healthcare disparities, look for novel technologies to support, individuals that are looking for, kind of last options really in some cases. But, when you kind of think about the capital markets environment, I know you've shifted to marketing and sales, which I think we should touch on a little bit more, but the IPO market sort of softened in 2023, and and we see, well, maybe not for some, right? There's been,
I think we all know that one, yeah.
So it's not a mystery to anyone, but with some of the early activity that you're seeing, primarily from big pharma, M&A, some consolidation in the space, and you all, I think are also targeting an IPO in the future. What does that look like in terms of 2024 into 2025? And, where do you think the markets will be, not to put a glass ball in your hand necessarily, but, just how do you anticipate where we are today and where you see us going in terms of the capital markets?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just interest rates and the macroeconomic effect, I think we're seeing a positive direction now and coming out of sort of this crazy locked up period that we're in where people were really delaying making any long-term decisions. Now, having said that, in particular in cell and gene, and more broadly, perhaps in the early stage biotech markets, folks are still trying to expand their runway, not knowing exactly when their next value inflection point is going to hit, if they're going to have to make a dilutive round. So I think that people are still conservative, but we see that changing a lot, especially from a year ago where it was complete pause. So things are getting better. I think that the capital recycling process seems to be hitting a nice momentum too. You have to, the PE side, they need to be able to exit in order to redeploy. And so that's opening up a bit too. However, the one uncertainty really is this geopolitical situation that we're dealing with. There's a lot of uncertainty with regard to the world economy. And so that can potentially have an impact depending on the wars that are occurring and some of the issues we're having with China. So hopefully all of that also gets resolved in the near term, and the election is coming up, and that's always has an interesting impact on things. However, in terms of its impact on biotech, we're seeing it really having a nice positive momentum, especially coming off of 2023, which was not the best year.
Sure. And I think, that's sort of the bright spot, right? We can, as I think companies look to extend their cash runway, become more flexible in their decision making. A lot of that went to service providers like Center for Breakthrough Medicine. And did you see a ramp up of activity during that time, or where do you think a lot of that business and pipeline was developed around in the last couple of years?
Well, look, in cell and gene therapy in particular, you're seeing the FDA in the past 5 years, there were 5 approvals in 5 years, 1 per year on average. And then last year, there were 5 approvals in 1 year. And this year, we're looking at 15 approvals. I mean, there is tremendous momentum when it comes to clinical and commercial success in the cell and gene therapy. What we need to work on in CGT is really reducing the cost of goods sold, figuring out a better way to, right now, cell therapy, for example, you're taking a patient's immune cells, genetically modifying them in a lab, and then returning those to the patient. The vein to vein time and the logistics, it's very challenging. And patients are having to travel to these centers of excellence, these cancer centers. So there are certain areas in the globe and in the United States where patients aren't getting treated. It's just so much of a burden on the family. Anyway, we need to figure all that out. But in terms of the positive momentum with the science and the commercial success, it's fantastic. And I think the funding really just needs to go along with it, which seems to be picking up substantially.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you mentioned the macroeconomic and macro political risks that are occurring, just given what's happening globally. And obviously now being a global company, a lot of that is probably more under the microscope. But, how do you as a leader mitigate risks in terms of thinking about your growth and your trajectory as well?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you have to have the right people in the right seats, hire to your weaknesses. And we have a stellar team here. Our quality and regulatory team is really best in business. And that's something that the pharma companies, and for that matter, all of our clients, are really focused on. It's all about on-time, in full delivery, doing everything according to FDA and world guidelines, depending on the regulatory agency that we're working with. So you have to be focused on meeting those standards, but also being aware of all the risks that, as you mentioned, that can come to play when manufacturing or distributing a drug. So having risk mitigation plans in place for the actual operations. We have a really robust Six Sigma team. So all of that is in place when it comes to manufacturing excellence and operations. But then there's all the stuff that you really can't control. When you mentioned the geopolitical situation, the financial markets, you just always have to have a backup plan in place. And that really comes to the board and the executive management team, understanding all of the surrounding factors in our environment, in addition to, by the way, perhaps even, for example, cyber risk. There's just a lot of things out there that you have to be paying attention to, and having a team that's focused on it, making sure that you have a safe and secure environment, and that you have employees that are really well trained, which is why we're talking today with our training institute. But yeah, it's all of that is super important for risk mitigation.
Yeah. And talk to us a little bit more about your training institute as well.
Yeah, cell and gene therapy is a really interesting business because it's generally new. And so there's not a ton of people in the universe that have decades of experience. We happen to have a team that does. We're really lucky to be in this region that has talent that have backgrounds in cell and gene therapy. However, you can only get that far with previous experience. And so you really have to train, and every process is bespoke. And so we have a really robust training program. I think there's an amazing opportunity in particular for the city of Philadelphia, because many of our jobs, you don't necessarily need a college degree. So we can hire people, train them on manufacturing processes, warehouse logistics, making sure that folks are properly trained in order for GMP. But there is this opportunity that you're creating a job, a very sticky job, in STEM that really can create wealth for generations and change the trajectory of some of these families. So we're really pleased to be bringing this to Philadelphia, creating these jobs. We have 400 people on our site now, and that's probably going to grow to over 2,000 in the next 5 to 10 years, if not sooner. So we're really pleased to be bringing these jobs to Philadelphia, almost all of which will be trained internally.
Yeah, it's an amazing program that you all have developed. And it obviously goes well with the legacy that Philadelphia has just as a manufacturing hub. And now its emergence as a biomanufacturing hub. And so, it's not only just providing technical skill sets and upskilling for underserved populations, but it's also providing real opportunities for folks to establish a career without having to, go through the hurdles of debt, for education, and really a pathway to growth and sustainability from a career perspective.
You said it way better than I did. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And so that's a big part of the scientific community, right? It's mentorship, it's having good folks around you and diversity perspectives. And maybe it's not just even biotech, it's all industries and businesses. And you're really only as strong as sort of I would say the kind of lowest idea, which at times also becomes the best idea. And so when you think about the Philadelphia scientific community, what does it mean to you, and how are you seeing it change?
Yeah, I went to Penn. I don't even want to say how many years ago, but it was a while back. And I was aware of all the technology at Penn and CHOP and Temple and Drexel and all the amazing research institutions that we have, but it wasn't making its way out of the universities at that time. And it really took some genius in the Penn Center for Innovation and some of the folks that they brought in with tech translation out of the research institutes into the public domain. And so having that tech transfer office that's really robust is helpful at these leading universities. Boston certainly has that in their universities. So I think that's step one. Step two is having the funding sources. Everything costs money, talent, infrastructure, facilities, research, all of the things that you need to commercialize a drug. I mean, we've all heard the numbers, 10 years, $2 billion, whatever it is. It's expensive. So having not only NIH funding, which we happen to be the number one funded region for cell and gene therapy, but having that NIH money, but also having private capital. And like I said earlier in our conversation, Philly is really good at importing capital, but having some homegrown pools of capital that can really service a continuum throughout a company's life cycle. And I do feel that being proximate to capital sources can really help during times of strain. Having relationships is important, and also for exit. So if you have a fund that's based in Philadelphia, they're going to recycle the capital here. And so I think it's helpful to have some, and I know that Governor Shapiro and some of his team, Ben Kirshner, who's focused on economic development here in our state, are very focused on and are very knowledgeable about that. And Ben Franklin Technology Partners, by the way, is a great example of that. But we need bigger funding sources too. They're great for the early stage, but we need to have that continuum of capital that's following a company throughout its life cycle.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, having those serial entrepreneurs that are recycling capital into the market, it's not only just it's the cash value, and the economic value. It's also just the experience and the mentorship that comes with guiding someone through commercialization. Because as you know, a lot of times the folks that are creating companies and spin outs out of university and academia are scientists by nature. Very rarely you get a MBA, CPA, some of the real estate background to launch a manufacturing hub. But, there's a lot of, I don't want to say hand holding, but in a sense, it's really having a hands-on, almost, day-to-day operational oversight, and really having the pulse of what the business is doing to help them achieve growth. So, with that being said, Philadelphia certainly has a lot to offer as a precision medicine hub, as a manufacturing hub. And, we're excited to be located there as Scheer partners and be a support mechanism for the marketplace. But we also, as you know, have been partnering with Life Science Cares PA and BioBuzz. And, you've been recognized as a BioBuzz Awards finalist. And so really just trying to understand what it means for you and your team and your family to be acknowledged in that regard.
Oh, it's huge. First of all, we love Life Science Cares. They're doing amazing things for the community and the life science world, and are very innovative, by the way, in their approach. So I appreciate that as well. But it's just such an honor to be recognized when you're working so hard. I mean, this is not a 9 to 5 job, right? I mean, I am in this 24/7, blood, sweat, and tears. And to be able to be recognized for all the hard work and the difference that you're making, not just in the Philadelphia region, but really around the world, is such an honor. And I can't thank you enough and the organizations enough for really recognizing that. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for all that you do, and just really admire you and your background and where you've taken, the Center for Breakthrough Medicine, and really, now with SK Pharmteco and future plans. It's just really something that's compelling that I think folks want to watch and want to see you succeed. So thank you so much for joining me today for BioBlast, and I'm sure this is the first of many conversations that we'll have in developing our relationship.
Fantastic. So nice to talk to you. Appreciate all the time.
Thank you, Audrey Greenberg. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.